This morning, a flashback to the way it was. Join us as we take a nostalgic trip to the Bronx through this new book, Just Kids from the Bronx, telling it the way it was.
This is the Emmy Award-winning Pix 11 News Close-Up with Marvin Scott.
Good morning, everyone. This morning, we depart somewhat from the heavy issues we usually discuss in this program to take a nostalgic look at the only place in the world that has "the" as part of its location. There's the Vatican, The Hague, and the Bronx. Da Bronx, as us natives call it. There is so much history in Da Bronx, so many fond memories. It's where so many young lives were inspired to reach for higher goals. To name a few, former Secretary of State Colin Powell, author Mary Higgins Clark, Al Pacino, comedian Robert Klein, Carl Reiner, and Regis Philbin. Arlene Alda set out to record an oral history of the Bronx, and she's done a brilliant job of it in her book, Just Kids from the Bronx. Now, Arlene is a prolific writer. This is her 19th book. I don't know where she finds the time. She's the mother of 3 daughters and 8 grandchildren, and she just happens to be the wife of this guy, this acclaimed actor, Alan Alda. It's so good to welcome you to Pix News Close-Up.
Thank you so much.
So many fond memories. Well, you're not a kid, though. You're almost a kid. You went to Fordham University.
Well, we have a mixed marriage. I'm from Manhattan. She's from the Bronx.
So how did the two of you wind up getting together between the Bronx and Manhattan?
Yeah, pure luck. We have a mutual friend, and she was in Manhattan. We were invited to a dinner party. He was sitting down at one end of the table. I was at the other end of the table. A rum cake that was on top of the refrigerator fell off because of the shaking of the refrigerator, fell to the floor, splat. We were the only two who went in with spoons to eat it off the floor.
And how many years? The rest is history.
Yeah, and we've saved an enormous amount on dishes.
58 coming up in 2 days.
God bless.
Yeah.
So a very rich background, rich heritage, rich memories. Arlene, you really delve into so much of the Bronx, and I'm a kid from the Bronx. And,
I'm glad to hear that.
Looking at your book, it's telling it the way it was. There were so many fond memories from the parks. I know you point out, and so did the borough president, how much parkland there is in the Bronx. But there are so many places that we all remember as kids growing up. The Grand Concourse, the Lowe's Paradise Theater, Crumbs. What else am I missing?
Okay, well, you're hitting the hot spots on the west side of the Bronx, but it's a big borough. Don't forget, the Botanical Garden is world class. The zoo is world class. Of course, Yankee Stadium and all the look, there is parkland in the Bronx, all the wilderness in Pelham Bay Park, and the not so wild parts of Pelham Bay Park. City Island, we have an island off the coast of the Northeast Coast called City Island. Let's see, what else? But though, you know, the memories for people of my generation and then a little younger, your generation, are different than the memories of kids who came after. And so I spoke to rap artist, Grandmaster Melly Mel. I spoke to Tats Crew guys who are graffiti artists. I spoke to urban environmentalist Majora Carter.
Different generations.
And
you cover that in your book.
Yeah.
So what is it that has changed? What has evolved over the years, Arlene?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. In our generation, I think Manhattan was the magnet. And to get out of Manhattan was the magnet, and to get out to work in the big city was really a goal. Well, it's shifted. The younger people in the Bronx now, for the first time, they want to stay there. It's a whole different sensibility. And I think technology has, in a good way, played into that.
Out of the 64 people that you interviewed in the Bronx, how many people are living in the Bronx now?
Yeah, about a dozen from these prominent people.
That's a lot, a dozen out of 64.
Yeah, so there's artist, urban planner, graffiti artists, environmentalists, living in the Bronx now.
Yeah, well, Colin Powell, of course, was from the Bronx, and you share some stories.
Yeah,
share some of the stories he shared with you.
the great Colin Powell. I just love the way he's so down to earth and so honest and so forthright in his stories of childhood. When he went up on his roof, having taken soda bottles, glass, not plastic in those days, soda bottles that he put into tin cans that he put on the trolley tracks so the trolleys would go over the tin cans, pulverize the glass, paste them onto the kite strings, put razors on them, fly the kites on the roof so they could cut the kites of the kids a block away. And that was a version of World War II planes being downed.
And he was how old at the time?
Oh, he was a
Teenager?
young, not even a teenager.
So, Alan, the first time Arlene dragged you out of Manhattan to come see her up in the Bronx, what was your impression of the
That first time was the night the rum cake fell on the floor. So we walked home. We walked through Central Park to get to the subway to get up to the Bronx. But there were 6 inches of snow on Central Park, and we couldn't see the path. And anyway, we were so busy paying attention to one another, we walked in a complete circle in the snow and wound up back where we started. And then we went across town again, got on the subway, and that started many subway trips to and from the Bronx. Arlene used to, when I'd leave her at her apartment in the Bronx, she'd give me some rye bread to put in my pocket. So I'd forget about it, and 2 weeks later, I'd reach in my pocket, I'd have a board that was a stale piece of rye bread in my pocket.
You're lucky there weren't mice along
I know.
A stale nosh.
I'd get on the subway, and I'd miss my stop in Manhattan. It was so late. I'd wake up in Brooklyn. Then I'd come back.
Oh, and also, you were in the Grand Boulevard in the Bronx.
Oh, the concourse.
The concourse. Take a look at the concourse, patterned after the Champs-Élysées.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
It's great.
Yeah, beautiful
We just
buildings.
passed that building.
Yeah, beautiful buildings on the concourse. The concourse, it was built, I think, in the early 1900s, maybe started early 1900s, finished. Subway lines went further north. That was the start of the development of the Bronx. And it's built on a ridge. That concourse goes on a high point of the Bronx. People don't realize the Bronx can be very hilly.
And they re-gentrified that recently. There was a whole renovation of the Grand Concourse, originally patterned after
The Champs-Élysées.
I remember as a kid, I used to deliver newspapers, like my little red wagon across the Grand Concourse, delivering the Bronx Home News, going
beautiful.
off one rooftop to another.
And Regis Philbin used to deliver the Bronx Home News on his bicycle, you know,
He had a bicycle,
towards-
I had a little red wagon. But that Regis over there?
Yeah, that's Regis.
That's Regis. Look at the
Cool.
kid with his short pants. Okay,
yeah,
Reg.
little Reg.
It looks like the thing he delivered the papers with, doesn't it?
Yeah,
does.
no, I think he had a bow and arrow. I'm not
Oh.
sure what it, I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, it could be. Also, in terms of the concourse, Lloyd Olton, who's a Bronx historian and really knows the Bronx.
He certainly does. I know him, yes.
Yeah, he's tremendous. When he was 3, he saw President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in a car, a whole motorcade across the Grand Concourse, and he was pulling at his mother's sleeve. Look, there's President Roosevelt. And he said to me, of course, I thought his first name was President.
Let's take a break and let's continue our trip down memory lane. Arlene Alda has just written this book, Just Kids from the Bronx, and we're having a blast this morning reminiscing those good old days back in the Bronx. We'll be right back.